Welcome back to The Full View. Now, a month after the elections, President Ramaphosa will announce his cabinet this evening. Let's unpack this a little bit further with Wits political economist Lumkile Mondi, as well as Black Business Federation Secretary General Wanda Jaca. Let's start with you, Lumkile. I want to perhaps go to this. There's been a lot of talk about market vulnerability, market volatility, and market sensitivity around the formation of government and cabinet. How crucial is finding the right balancing act for a sustained market positive sentiment over the next couple of months to enable a government to do the work of economic reform and economic building, getting the economy to grow at least at a minimum level faster than the rate of the population growth?
I wish I had all the answers. But I think what you need to remember is that the markets were comforted by the fact that the ANC is no longer the majority party that will be able to continue implementing its policies, which have had disastrous consequences for South Africa. Remember that the South African economy since 2011 has shrunk tremendously. South Africans have become poorer, poverty has worsened, unemployment is the highest in the world, so is inequality. This has happened in the space of 30 years under an ANC government. So therefore, the expectations, I think from many investors particularly, is that perhaps in a coalition or a government of national unity, we're going to start seeing policies that will signal to the domestic investors and entrepreneurs to take a long-term investment view, and in that process contribute to the reconstruction of South Africa, leading to better levels of economic growth, and therefore address the triple challenges that I've talked to. So it's not going to be an easy one, but what is very encouraging is that a majority government that has got one of the best constitution around inequality and addressing the problems of the past that inherited failed to do so. Therefore, it means basically that, as the voter spoke, that they're very unhappy with the ANC performance. They would like to see a much more inclusive government, which will be announced this evening by the president.
Yeah. Wanda, just to this, how important is it for business sentiment that the principles of key economic cluster ministries are those that carry a positive sentiment, an inclusive sentiment to growth, and one that still takes into account the recent contemporary history of exclusion, both in the economy as well as in society by and large, of black people from mainstream participation?
Thanks. As BPF, we believe that the economic cluster ministries should be people with capabilities, people with experience, people with vision, and also people that understand how government works and how the economy works, and then people who make bold decisions. But at the center of it, they should be people who understand that our country is faced with triple challenges, which are poverty, unemployment, as well as inequalities. So those should be at the center of the agenda to be addressed. And for us, we believe that the Black empowerment agenda should be prioritized. So for us, that's important that we get those kind of ministers and leaders in the economic clusters of ministries.
Yeah. One day, industry bodies, federations, and forums like yourself typically are also, not to shy away from it, lobbyists, right? You have a certain agenda, you hope for it to be achieved in a certain way, and you identify your champion within the body politic of the country to be able to champion that course and agenda. Have you guys at the Black Business Federation identified your champion?
for us, we won't go into names, but we will, as we say, that there is a particular criteria of leaders that we want to see in this cluster. But importantly, we believe that the government of national unity that should compose the cabinet should also take into account that there is work that has been done by the 6th administration. So it shouldn't be that the 7th administration through the GNU becomes a totally new government that will undo all the good that have been done. But obviously there were many things that were done wrong. We want a government that will also correct those wrongs, and then where they can improve, but there should be continuity. And then also as PPF, we believe that the 6th administration and the past administration, haven't performed well in terms of placing the black people at the center of the economy, their agenda of inclusion. So we want a GNU that will be inclusive, make sure that small black businesses do get to be integrated and also get to participate and have also a fair share. So we believe that South Africa have capable leaders who understand the economic transformation agenda, and those are the kind of leaders that should be considered. And also, we don't actually believe that the government should also be composed through cadre deployment. So it should be people who qualify, people with capabilities, people who have experience, and people who will champion the agenda of black people.
Sure.
And also,
I just want to I want to go to this because I think this forms a great part of that conversation about championing a specific agenda. Lumkile, I want to bring you back in here. From about 2008 to well over 2019, about, perhaps even earlier than that, the South African economy was described as body politic inconsistent. That is to say, people were divesting, or at least we were told investors were divesting because of policy uncertainty, especially between industrial policy, trade policy, and fiscal policy, and how that interchanges with each other. To a lesser extent, monetary policy. To a very far less extent of that. Does it not bring about more policy uncertainty when you have a salad or a cocktail of political parties having to decide on industrial policy, trade policy, and fiscal policy in economic reform? Why suddenly would the markets find comfort in that if it comes at the cost of an ANC reduced majority, rather than, hey, we just need consistency so that we can price that into our investments?
Yeah, it is because we're now cleverer. We know that period that you've just described was a period of rent-seeking and steroids, as presented in the Zondo Commission. And secondly, also, a huge movement of illicit flows. That is why South Africa is grey-listed today, and that it is very, very difficult for some investors to put money in South Africa because, firstly, of these two issues of illicit flows and rampant corruption that we've seen. So therefore, what we are looking at now, we are very positive that perhaps with a government of national unity, there's going to be more accountability coming through. Rule of law is going to prevail. Constitutionalism is going to
Why are we so sure that there would be
policy?
Why would we be so sure that there would be more accountability, Lumkile, given that where we've seen coalitions take place, we haven't quite seen that culture of accountability come through?
Yeah, it's very, very easy. We know whatever today, because we know that in the ANC, people that were implicated by the Zondo Commission, they are back in power, and they still occupy high position. Many of us hope that through a government of national unity, we're going to call a number of them to account for the ills. Secondly, that in a government of national unity, it's going to be very, very difficult also for Parliament not to hold executive account, given the diversity of that. So I think for us, we're in a very interesting period of institutional change, where not only are we seeing institutional change where a dominant part such as the ANC has lost power, but also there's going to be economic change. the economic change that's going to take place is going to be driven by government of national unity, who are going to prioritize national needs than party and those politically linked people who have benefited, while the majority have witnessed falling infrastructure, no water, lack of access to electricity. We hope that in this new government, there'll be those checks that will ensure that there is no leakage in our economy whatsoever.
Yeah, wonder, should there be paralysis, inaction? The delivery that we've been promised doesn't come through. Who takes responsibility there? One could imagine a situation where you see a lot of finger pointing amongst the parties about who is to be blamed.
I think what we anticipate in the government of national unity, or what should happen, is that previously there has been no enforcement in terms of accountability. Because our policies are good in nature, but in terms of they are not implemented, and also the Chapter 9 institutions that must make government account were in Tata. So we hope that with the government of national unity, there will be more accountability. And in fact, we believe that there should also be an accounting section, an institution that should be established, to play an oversight role on the in terms of the delivery of the promises of government.
I guess in that instance, the appointment of the minister in the presidency responsible for monitoring and evaluation becomes all the more that critical, because it would monitor and evaluate a cabinet made up of different ministers from different political parties. We're going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much for your time, Lumkile, Mondi, as well as Wanda Jata. I really appreciate that.